It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hipp.
Hey, what happens when you have to retire sooner than you'd planned? New research from what's called the Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies is showing unexpected early retirements in this country are very common, and it's sure a big hurdle to jump over if you're not ready for it. Hi, I'm your Sunday morning host, Ralph Hipp, and very busy, not nearly ready to retire. Let's bring in our main guy, the wealth creator for Springfield's Wealth Care. Let's bring in our main guy, Barry Watts of Springfield's Wealth Care Corporation. Barry, first of all, we are into Trump term 2, and how are things looking for you, sir?
Well, better than they look for Joe Biden because, he got retired early.
Yeah, and now that was not an unplanned early retirement. He knew that was coming.
Well, yeah, I guess technically he stepped aside, so I guess he didn't get retired. I guess he volunteered, but
yeah.
I'm suspicious that maybe Aunt Nancy helped with that. I don't know. I just know I'm glad that Trump's in place. I'm very glad, and the country seems to be glad. I think the mood of the country's improved. There's a degree to which it feels like happy days are here again. I don't really want us to get too carried away about that, Ralph. I don't think Donald Trump is the savior of America. Now, I think he was a good president last time, much better than person, frankly. And it certainly seems plausible that God may have saved him from that bullet in order to give America another chance. And certainly Trump has already done some good things in terms of his executive orders that get rid of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he's tightened the border and arrested some bad people and put some limits on new regulations. So I like everything I'm seeing. But we'll just have to wait and see how it all turns out in the months ahead. I'd say overall, though, I feel very hopeful and optimistic. And I heard Maria Bartiromo say earlier this week that this was the most optimistic time in her career that she had ever seen America. And so I think most of us feel pretty good about things. I'm guessing some of the Democrats even feel good about things. And it seems to me like we're headed in the right direction.
Well, President Trump, now that we can call him that, President Trump is calling it the golden age of America coming up. Barry, before we get into this early retirement thing, our topic today to start the show, just want to get a status report. Are a lot of people around Springfield, are they calling you, Barry, with Trump back in office? I'd like to talk about my plan, whether they think it may be going a little sour or things are going great. Are people already calling? I'd like to get together again now that we're in a new political economic climate. Have they contacted you about that?
No, that is not happening with our clients because we have built all weather plans for our clients.
Yes.
So that whether we have Biden or whether we have Trump, we have some plans in place and prepared to deploy that they work either way. So, there are people who call and want to talk cheerfully because they know I can talk about those things. And I don't otherwise have any influence on our clients in terms of the investment work that we're doing for them or the retirement work that we're doing for them.
Okay. Hey, if you want to hop on board, get on the list to talk to J. Barry Watts, the main wealth creator at the Wealth Care Corporation. That number, let me give it out to you, 417-200-3500, 417 around the Ozarks, 200-3500. As Barry and I are talking about this new study showing an increase in unplanned early retirements. Are you seeing a lot of that, Barry, around the Ozarks?
Well, I wouldn't say I see a lot of it, but it certainly does happen. It's not unusual when it occurs. The Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies says that the typical American does retire earlier than they expected to. The average age of retirement is 62, so I'm there. About 60% of people who retire, 6 out of 10 of them say that retirement happened earlier than they expected it to. And in some cases, it was not by choice. So it's possible. It might happen. And if it does happen, we need to be prepared to respond to it.
Build it into the overall plan. What type of impact do you think an unexpected early retirement, even a few years before you'd planned it, possibly has on our overall retirement picture, Barry?
Well, just think about it. It's less years that you'll be saving into your retirement funds. So your retirement nest egg doesn't have quite as much helping it to grow. And it's got fewer years for the nest egg to grow before you start making withdrawals. And if you do start withdrawing that money at a younger age, well, it just makes it more challenging to stretch that nest egg over the rest of your life until you're potentially 100 years old because you're trying to encompass more years. So, Ralph, if I were ceremoniously fired today, and some days I think I might be because, I am the boss. So
you'd have to do it yourself, boss.
Some days I look at myself and say, Barry, you're an idiot. You're fired. But then I say, well, I better go back to work. So if I were unexpectedly shown the door and it was a few years before I had anticipated it, the first thing I would do is I would just have a retirement income plan analysis put together and get the answer to the question. Number one, how is this going to affect me? And if I call it done and I don't go back to work and I say, well, here I am, we're just going to be retired now. Do I have enough saved for retirement to get me to age 100? And it might be that you do. And if that's the case, well, that's empowering. It gives you great strength to know that you don't have to go back to work. You can if you want to. But now you get to call the tune because you're not pressured to take just the next opportunity that comes along. You can be picky and choosy about what the next step in your employment journey might be. So if that's something you'd like to explore, that idea of seeing what your retirement income might look like, here's what I want to encourage you to do. However much you enjoy the show, however much you like me and Ralph, and I hope you do, otherwise I'm guessing you would have tuned out to some other show. Well, why don't you just pick up the phone and call us and let's have a personal conversation where we're talking back and forth to one another, a conversation instead of one way like we are right now on the radio. Call us at the Wealth Care Corporation. And one of our outstanding retirement designers will do a retirement income analysis for you. It comes at no charge. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, it's not a big lift for us to do that little piece of it. We do know how to do those fairly simply and easily because we do so many of them each week. And so we'd be glad to go through that process with you to figure out what you can do. And along the way, then we'll make some suggestions about how you can even strengthen your position. So it would be a really wonderful thing if you lost your job to know that you're in the driver's seat. So if you want to retire with confidence, and that's a good thing, just call us today. The number is 417-200-3500. And because it's the weekend, you'll have to leave a message, but just say, hey, I heard Barry on the radio and I want to talk about retirement income. Monday morning, you'll get a call back probably from Josh. And Josh will say, whip out your calendar and let's find a time when the two of us can get together.
What looks
good?
Put you
in the room with a retirement designer, and we'll get started on the process. That number again is 417-200-3500 for the Wealth Care Corporation.
Yes, ma'am. And yes, sir. When you're listening to the radio show, Barry and I talk and you listen. And as lovely as that is, we can make it even better where you would be talking and Barry would be listening and you make that phone call, text, visit, or make that call and make that happen. Barry and I are discussing the rising trend of these unexpected, unplanned early retirements in the good old USA, which is becoming more common. And also, I would add, Barry, taking away pensions from companies is something that's also seeing a rising trend. What are some of the ways you talk over planning with somebody coming to visit you at the Wealth Care Corporation for something unplanned? Do you have a format, a certain formula you follow in talking with them, or everybody's different?
Well, it's hard to plan for things that are unplanned, Ralph, our conversations are all guided by our 6 steps to retirement confidence process. So yes, we know that we're going to be walking people through those 6 steps. And the first of those steps just begins with the idea of retirement income. How much income are you going to need in retirement to go home and be done? And how are you going to deal with the rising cost of living over the years that you are retired? What are the steps that you need to follow and pursue? And after we've done that and determined whether or not you have enough income to go to age 100, well, then that may be an indicator to move forward, or it may be, no, you need to go back to work because you've got to have more money accumulated. Well, it's at least good to know your situation. The second thing that we then do, the second step on that 6-step process, is we go to your taxes and we say, are you paying too much tax, more than you ought to have to pay? And for many people, I would say the answer is yes, they are paying more than they have to pay, particularly as your wealth increases, your options for reducing tax increase. If you're just a W-2 wage earner and you're making 40 or 50 or 60,000 bucks a year, pretty limited on what you can do. But if you're a business owner and you're making $250,000 or $500,000 a year, oh, the world is your oyster. There are lots of things that you can do to save on taxes. When we talk about taxes, Ralph, we're not just looking at the taxes you pay today, but we're thinking about the kind of tax that you might pay on your Social Security when you start taking it. We're thinking about what we could do to keep you from having to pay extra for your Medicare. There are people who have to pay extra, and it's because of what's happening with their income. They didn't structure their income appropriately. So those are the first two steps in the process. They're pretty exciting. And that's the place that we would begin, helping people to organize their thoughts and figure out what they need to do next and whether or not they need to go back to work.
Very good, sir. Hey, this is Watts on Wealth, the radio show, and with Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. This is Ralph Hipp, your host, and we're delighted you're with us. Well, if things are going smoothly and then you expect the unexpected, we have a pension from the company, and we have our retirement accounts, several going, and we have our Social Security. Let's get to that third leg of the stool, Barry. How could being forced to retire early possibly affect our Social Security benefits?
Well, first of all, it could reduce the amount of your benefits because you're putting less money into Social Security right here at what were your probably highest wage earning years. So if you shave off 3 or 4 years at the end when you were going to be putting more money into Social Security, and those are your high wage earning years, well, then that's going to reduce the amount of Social Security you were going to get most likely. If you're forced to retire early, it makes some people claim Social Security early before they reach the full retirement age. And that's the age at which they get full benefits. And so a forced retirement could be why so many people file early as age 62, which is the youngest that you're allowed to file for Social Security. But the trade-off is this. If you file for Social Security at age 62, it reduces permanently the amount of monthly check that you're going to get from Social Security by about 30% over what would happen if you waited until you were full retirement age, which is 67 for most people. Now, some people go on beyond age 67 to age 70, and every year that you wait between age 67 and 70 adds about 8% to your check. So that can boost you another 30%, 24%, we should say right there. So there's about a 50% delta. How'd you like that sophisticated technical word?
I like it.
There's about a 50% slosh from left to right on what you might receive in Social Security based on whether you try to file for it at 62 or whether you wait and file for it at age 70. And interestingly enough, only 4% of retirees will wait until age 70 to start their benefits. I'm going to be one of the 4% because if I die early, as I would expect would happen in my family, I would be the first one to pass away. I want to be sure that I leave Kelly with the largest check possible. And when you die, your spouse is either going to keep receiving their check, or if your check is larger, they're going to receive your check. Well, I want to make sure Kelly's check is as large as possible, so we don't plan for me to take Social Security until age 70. Got to wait 8 more birthdays to make that happen.
Yep. What's the right play? What's the right move? Barry can help you decide on behalf of your family. The idea of an unplanned early retirement, if that worries you, take advantage of the expertise of Barry Watts and get started right away. Leave that message today. Call them tomorrow. It's 417-200-3500, Barry Watts and his team at the Wealth Care Corporation. We're glad you're alongside. We're going to take a brief pause here, back with our main topic of the day on Watts on Wealth right after this.
The pace of inflation may change, but it never disappears. How might it affect your retirement nest egg? Get the answers by calling Barry Watts at 417-200-3500. Once more, that's 417-200-3500. Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in Watts on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours retire successfully. Get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through WealthCare Asset Management, LLC. If you're pondering the longevity of your retirement savings with questions like, is my nest egg sufficient? Or how long will my retirement funds last? Consider scheduling a session with Barry Watts. Text VISIT to 417-200-3500. Again, that's text VISIT to 417-200-3500 now to set up your appointment.
You know, friends, Watts on Wealth is the radio home right here of the expert retirement plan designer, J. Barry Watts of the WealthCare Corporation. This is Ralph Hipp with Barry. Watts on Wealth is the radio show, the name of the website, the name of the book, and the name of the TV show. Barry and I are also on all the Springfield TV channels, usually on Sunday morning. If you're an early riser, you're with us now. If you're an early riser, you probably saw us already on TV today. And we have a great TV show going right now, Barry, and I hope a lot of people are watching and listening. Did you get to watch this morning?
I think they are.
Yeah.
They are, Ralph.
They're out
no,
there.
I didn't watch this morning. I already knew what I was going to say on the show.
And I knew it too,
I'll tell you this. We're seeing a lot of people who are stopping me on the street, some people who I don't know, and saying, hey, I watch your TV show.
Great.
And then somebody else who will hear about it, then they'll say, well, I listen to your radio show. So, yeah, it's out there. And hopefully the folks who listen to our show here are doing that. And I would encourage them to avail themselves of the opportunity to have a copy of my book. The book is called Watts on Wealth. And we'll be happy to send you a copy of the book at no charge. All you have to do is ask for it. And the simple way you ask for it is just text the word book, BOOK, to 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. Text the word book, and we'll put a copy in the mail to you on Monday morning.
Fantastic. Well, people have written into Barry, and some of that provides some very good information for the book he wrote. Let's go over some of your questions. Barry receives all kinds of very good questions each and every week about retirement issues. So let's get into that Watts on Wealth mailbag with question number one. First of all, my husband and I will retire around the same time, and we're considering moving abroad, moving overseas. How would that impact our savings and our pensions, Barry?
Well, I moved abroad once. I went south of the line and lived in Arkansas for 2 or 3 years. But I suspect
Overseas.
that may be what you're talking about, or not what you're talking about. You know, it's kind of a romantic idea. And I sort of, anytime I'm in another country, I kind of go through the process, could I live here? And generally, the answer is yes. I'll tell you, one of the only places I've been that I could not live is China. Whew. There's a lot of reasons for that. That just would not work for me. Mm-mm. Although I have friends and clients who have lived a big part of their entire career in China, and it works for them. So a lot of Europe is really livable. I was down in Argentina last year. It's just like being home. I mean, there was no difference at all. It was perfectly fine. Well, there are some differences, though, that you have to consider if you were really thinking about moving there. First of all, what's the exchange rate in the foreign currency? How much of whatever they have in that country are you going to get for $1 in this country? Because if their currency is worth a lot more, then you effectively don't have as many dollars to retire with as you would have if you were retiring into a country whose currency was worth less. And that's one of the reasons, by the way, that we want to be sure that the U.S. dollar remains the primary exchange medium for all countries in the world. So we want to think about the cost of living. What does it cost to live down there? When I was in Argentina, they were experiencing 100% inflation per, I think it was just every 2 or 3 months. And I can't even get my brain around how that could possibly work. But they do have a new president in place. He was in Washington here about 2 weeks ago for Trump's inauguration. And he has gotten that under control, and Argentina has slashed the size of their government, and their inflation has fallen dramatically. He's got the country on good, solid, sound footing. I think you need to consider what are the taxes in that new country, and what's healthcare going to be like, and what's it going to cost in that new country, because all of those influence whether or not it's really possible for you to move abroad. I'll tell you this, I'm never going to move abroad, I don't think. There's some tax reasons that I might move to Puerto Rico, but that's not technically abroad. That's the United States, really. So lots of things to think about if you want to do that.
And this next person writes, I know that our government tends to spend a lot of those dollars. I'm not sure how it impacts me personally. Does it really have an effect on me and my wealth? How can I educate myself on ways to protect what I've saved? Good question.
Well, you've asked the right person, because I'm going to give it to you simple and straight up.
Listen up, folks, and we got some numbers here.
Where do you think the government gets the money it spends? from you.
Yes.
There is no such thing as government money. It's the people's money that was taxed away from them one way or another. Now, I'm going to tell you what I pay in taxes because this is just dealing with questions like this has caused me to really dig into it. So here's my personal situation. I pay 37% of every dollar I earn to the federal government. And then I pay another 4.8% of every dollar I earn to the state government in Jefferson City. And then I pay 12.4% to the Social Security program. You may be only paying half of that if you are employed by someone else, but because I am the employee and the employer, I pay both sides of that. So for me, it's 12.4%. Then I pay 2.9% to Medicare. Then I pay 4.2% in state taxes for sales purposes. So now we're moving to sales taxes. 4.2% for sales taxes, 1.7% for county sales tax, 2% for the city of Springfield sales tax. When you total that all up, 65.2% of every dollar I bring in goes to taxes. And we haven't even added real estate tax and personal property tax. So I got to tell you, I'm discouraged, I'm depressed, and I'm downright angry about it. It is insane that 65% is going out the door just to settle those taxes. And so what we like to help people do is protect themselves. And Ralph, what I gave you was the tax I'd be paying if I didn't protect myself. Now, I have protected myself. And so I use some of the strategies that I'm talking to you about. So what I do, tax credits. A tax credit is where you actually pay your taxes with pennies on the dollar. And we can set people up for tax credits if they would like to acquire some of them that allow them to reduce their taxes. There are some strategies that are charitable strategies where however much you deduct gets you 5 times that amount in, however much you contribute gets you 5 times that amount in deduction. So, for example, if you put in $10,000, you would get a $50,000 deduction on your income taxes. Well, that can barely move the needle and begin changing things. I've done some of that. Then there are things like Roth conversions, where you take money out of your IRA account, convert it to Roth right now, and pay taxes at today's lower rate instead of the higher rate that is coming. And so really, Ralph, where I'm at in my practice is I have shifted and pretty much given the rest of my professional life as an advisor to helping people protect themselves from this tax problem. Because when it comes to retirement, if you don't get the taxes right, nothing else is going to matter. And people are intimidated by taxes. They don't know how to think about it. They don't know what to do. At the Wealth Care Corporation, we specialize in taxes and reducing them. And we'd love to help you do the same.
All right. Yes, indeed. And here's a good one, Barry. Think about this. My father worked at the same job for 30 years before he retired with his pension, and it seems he's never had to worry much about money. Now, I've worked for 3 different companies and making sure to contribute to my company's 401k with each job that I had. I'm realizing I should do something with those different accounts. So, Dad's in good shape. This person has 3, and I'm realizing I should do something with these different accounts. There's a good amount in each one of the 3, and I just don't know how to consolidate that money. Is that even the best thing for me to do? I'd love to enjoy retirement like my dad does. So what do I do, Barry? Do I consolidate or keep those accounts apart and have all 3 of those work on my behalf? What do you think?
In almost every case, you consolidate. There are some few examples where maybe you might not want to consolidate, but for the most part, you want to have the fewest numbers of accounts possible. So if you've got IRAs stuck at this company and that company and that company and this company and those companies, and you got your 401ks back where they were when you quit your job and you never rolled that into your IRA, all that needs to be swept together so it's managed in one comprehensive way so that every dollar gets the same kind of treatment. And what it will do is it will increase the amount of eye contact with your money. You'll have eyes on your money and on all your money, and you'll know what's going on far more in that account. And so it probably reduces your risk to have those accounts consolidated. Just because you've got IRA accounts scattered at 10 different places doesn't mean you're diversified. So the next step after we consolidate those is we want to develop a comprehensive plan. that can be executed on all of that money rather than just a plan with a little piece of it, but the rest of it doesn't have a plan. That doesn't work. It blows people up. It's why we tell people, sweep all your money together and let us show you what to do.
Barry, time to wrap up the show. I've just got a Ralph Hipp quickie question here. Have you called Governor Mike Kehoe yet and said, Mike, don't burn all that money in one place? Have you discussed things with him so far?
No, I haven't had any conversations with Mike. So I've only met Mike once briefly. Eric Burleson actually introduced us.
Where was that? Was that in Springfield?
Yeah, that was here in Springfield. He was here for an event that I don't frankly remember what that event was, but we were there. And I remember he was lieutenant governor then, and so Eric introduced me to him. So he wasn't my pick for governor, I'll tell you that. Not that I wasn't against him. He just wasn't the person that I would have picked. But we've got him, and I expect good things out of him. So I'm optimistic about what we get out of the governor.
And he's been signing executive orders and doing things very quickly. So we'll see how he wants to lead Missouri over the next 4 years. Barry, I hope you and I are together for the next 8 years till you're 70. And Bud, I always enjoy it. And any final words for our fans out there? We know you're listening. We know you're watching, and we appreciate that.
Well, we do appreciate the folks who are participating in all of our shows, both radio and TV. Thanks for being a part. Let us help you at the Wealth Care Corporation. It's why we do this. It's why I get up and go every day. I don't have to work. But I like working, and I like helping people deal with problems that feel beyond them and helping them develop solutions that allow them to retire confidently and send less of their money to Washington, D.C.
Or Jeff City. Governor Kehoe, we'll drop that in for you too. Barry, thanks again. That number, friends, is 417-200-3500 to have your own conversation with Barry, and we'll have a conversation with you on our next radio show. This is Ralph Hipp, and for Barry Watts and his whole great team at the Wealth Care Corporation, that is Watts on Wealth, the radio show. We'll hear you again next time.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan, give us a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And join us again next week for Watts on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.